Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's session on keeping your children safe online. My name is James, and I am from RM Technology, and we're so pleased to see so many of you joining us live today. We know that for a busy parent, the digital world can feel like it's moving 100 miles an hour. Whether it's a new app or the latest headlines about social media, there's a lot to keep up with. At RM, at RM, at our heart is to put learners at the center of everything. We partner with schools across the country to make sure technology is a safe and positive tool that enriches their lives. But we know that education doesn't stop at the school gates. And that's why we've opened today's session to not just RM school, we will also open up to everyone, even if the school that your child attends isn't an RM, it isn't provided by RM technology. Now, you might have not heard of RM Technology before, and that's because we usually work behind the scenes in your children's school. We provide the infrastructure, the online safety, the devices that help your kids learn every day. And now, while school leaders are the ones to choose us to be their IT partner, we believe that if you feel confident and empowered at home, then your child can get the very best out of the digital world. To help us navigate the digital world, I am thrilled to introduce our speaker, Alan Mackenzie. Alan is a true specialist who has been working in online safety since I think 2007. That's even before I left secondary school. Now, what makes Alan different is that he's actually lives and breathes this stuff. He's a gamer, a daily YouTuber user, and also a social media expert. He speaks to thousands of children and parents every year, so he really understands the reality of what our kids are seeing and doing online. He isn't here to lecture or to sell to us today. Alan here is to provide a simple, human and practical advice that you can use straight away at home. Before I hand over to Alan, just a quick bit of housekeeping. We want this to be a really helpful session. So if you haven't got any questions, please put them into a chat. There's a lot for Alan to go through today. So if we don't get to your question, we will try and follow up post-event, but there's a lot to go through. So hopefully your question is answered during the session. So without further ado, I will hand over to Alan to get the session started.
Thank you very much, James. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gents, just give me 1 second whilst I share my screen on here. And James, if you could just give me the thumbs up if you can see that, okay? Yep. Perfect. Thank you very much. So, good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, I should say. I don't really need to introduce myself because James from RM introduced me so kindly and so well on there. But first of all, I'd just like to say thank you very much to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to come along this afternoon and listen to my dulcet tones for the next 55 minutes or so. As James said, I've been working in the area of online safety since around about 2007. And just to be clear, it is all I do. I don't actually do anything else, apart from one thing, which I'll mention in just a second. So predominantly, my time is not behind a screen. It is physically in school talking with children. And that's the experience I'm bringing to you this afternoon. Does it mean I'm right? No, it's just a lot of opinion based on experience. Now, I know a lot of parents sent a lot of questions through to RM prior to this event. I have tried as hard as I can to structure this talk around many of those questions, but I can't cover everything, ladies and gents. So please forgive me if you have submitted a question and I don't directly answer that question, but indirectly, what I will try and do is to point you in the right direction. And as James says, that there is potential for follow-up events in the future as well. The other part of what I do is that I work with with Lincolnshire Police. Specifically, I work within a department called POLIT, which is the Paedophile Online Investigations Team. That is not an area that I am covering this afternoon, but suffice to say that the sexual exploitation of children and safeguarding those children and bringing offenders to account is an area in which I particularly specialise. But like I say, it's not an area that I'm going to go into in depth as a part of this. And then finally, as James says, If you do have any questions, please do feel free to put them in the bar there. I can't promise that I'll be able to give you time to answer those questions, because I have to try to fit quite a lot into this presentation. But I promise that I'll do what I can. So let's just get straight into it. When we're talking about online safety, what do we actually mean? The obvious answer to that is keeping our children safe online, but within that, a lot of different things have to work together. And some of those things I've put up on this slide here is the education, the support, and the tools that we as parents can use. From an educational perspective, you're probably already aware, but your children get taught about online safety and relationships and so many other things at school from year one all the way through to college. That's part of the national curriculum. It is legislated, it is statutory, and believe you me, ladies and gents, they get a lot of education. What's important is what children are being taught at schools, we can replicate that at home. So a lot of this comes with the parent support in keeping ourselves up to date, which is really, really difficult to do. And obviously using some of those parental tools, those features that are available to us as well. And I am going to be going through that a little bit as a part of this talk. So let's just jump into very simplistically, what are children doing? Well, from a very, very basic level, you can really cut this up into three aspects, three categories, if you were like, gaming, YouTube, and social media. Of course, they're doing lots and lots of things within those aspects, but in the main, that's where the concentration lies. So gaming and YouTube tend to be the top ones, and social media, certainly for primary age children, tends to be lower down on the graph. Although with that said, unfortunately, what we are seeing year on year is more children at younger ages using more social media. There was an expectation probably around about 10 years ago that we would actually start to see a reduction of young children using social media. In fact, what we're actually seeing, and certainly what I'm seeing when I'm in schools and I'm speaking to these very children, is we're actually starting to, we're seeing an increase year on year. To give you an example, just one example of many, there was some research or a study, I should say, that came out from Ofcom in January, and some of the figures coming out of that study are really quite staggering, and they estimate this is for 3 to 5 year old children. So they estimate that there are now around about 820,000 children aged 3 to 5 using social media such as Snapchat. So that for me is horrifying, especially for the work that I do with the police, because sadly that is, we see the end results of where a child has been groomed and exploited. So they're the sort of figures that and I'm sure yourselves don't like to see or indeed hear about. So when we're talking about risk, I've just mentioned one risk there, which is the exploitation of our children. It's one of the worst that is out there. The fact of the matter is that there are so many risks out there that there's no definitive list of what we actually mean by risk. So in order to simplify things, what we do is we categorize into what we call in education the 4 Cs. So as you can see on your screen there, the 4 Cs are content, contact, conduct, and commerce. And these are actually very useful for us parents, because instead of having to know absolutely everything, which you're never going to do, and which I'm never going to do, bearing in mind that this is the job that I do, if we can categorize and simplify things, it makes understanding what we can do an awful lot easier. So I'll give you a really simplistic example of what I mean by that. If your child is a gamer, of which most children are, and I have been for many years, and in fact since the early 1990s, I've been a gamer. But let's say, for example, when my son was a lot younger, and my son came home and said, "Dad, everyone else is playing this game, and I want to play this game because everyone else, it's the usual thing." And say I wasn't a gamer, then I would have to think to myself, well, is this game appropriate for my child? And the way I would do that is go through the 4 Cs. So, what is the content of that game? And am I happy with that content? In other words, does it show sexual content? Is there violent content? Is that appropriate and what I want for my child? Contact. Is there a means of engagement or contact within that game? Can I turn that contact off? Can I change or can I manage that contact so that I know that those friends my child is speaking to are friends that they actually know in real life? Conduct. If I allow my child to play this game, what will their behavior be? In other words, a really good example of that would be games such as Fortnite, which are very fast-paced games is probably the best way to put it. Fortnite is an incredibly fast-paced game, and they invariably children are playing with it with their friends from school and at home. And it's very easy to see behavior going down and down and down to a point where they're raging, they're getting angry because they're being killed all the time or killed very quickly. So at that point, do I have to limit the amount of games, or do I just take them off that game completely because of that behavioral aspect? And then commerce, the commercial aspect, is in this game, is there lots of spending? Do they have to buy these virtual coins and everything else? Can I turn that off? Can I turn it on and then just limit the amount that they can spend on a weekly or a monthly basis? So although the risk categories really do go into some quite complex areas, if you just think about it, regardless of what they're doing online, whether it's gaming, YouTube, or social media, and if you've got to question yourself and say, is this appropriate for my child? Just go through the 4 Cs, because they give you the very questions that you can be asking, not only of your child, but of the game, the app, or whatever it is. It's a really simplistic way, but trust me, ladies and gents, it really does work. So the risk categories are one thing, but how do we actually spot risk? There's this belief that you've got to be some sort of tech expert, and I will tell you hand on heart that you absolutely do not need to be a tech expert. And I think this is an aspect that worries a lot of parents, and quite understandably so. Technology moves at an extraordinary rate. It really does. I mean, look at AI now and look at how AI is moving. We're not even touching AI as part of this particular talk because it's just huge and it is moving so fast. But it gives you this false belief that you've got to be some sort of expert in all of this. You've got to be a gaming expert. You've got to be a YouTube expert. You've got to be a technology expert. No, you haven't, and you really don't need to be any of this. You'll see quite often in the media things like the top 10 apps that are dangerous for children, the top 10 apps that parents need to be aware of. Those sorts of things are all just clickbait. That's all they are. What you need to be aware of are the things, the technology, the apps and games that your children are using. That's the important bit, is just what your children are using. Spotting risk can be quite complicated, but a lot of it boils down to what is their behavior? What is their behavior now compared to last week, for example? Are you seeing a change in behavior? Is that behavior subtle? Are they having mood swings? Are their routines changing? So, for example, it might be that when they come off their phone or their PlayStation or whatever, they're feeling down or they're feeling happy. What has caused this sudden move swing? And their relationships with you in particular, moms and dads and carers in that way. Is that a good relationship we're having with that child? Or suddenly, if they stop speaking to us about things, do they no longer talk to us about that game that they were having so much fun? Why have they stopped talking to us about that? So spotting risk can sometimes be quite subtle, but as parents and carers, we have that curiosity. We get that gut feeling is the best way of explaining it, that something just isn't quite right. And I get that quite often when I'm in school, when I'm speaking with the children. And I don't even know these children. And I'm going to give you an example shortly just to explain what I mean on that. So spotting risk, it's an important one, but mostly It's all about those subtle cues. Something has changed, and then it's a matter of investigating, just delving a little bit deeper and finding out what has changed and why has something changed. It might be to do with technology. It might be that they've had a falling out with a friend at school, or it could be anything. But it's just about having those subtle, careful conversations with our children. So let's delve into gaming a little bit. As I've already mentioned, I've been a gamer for a long, long time. I love my gaming, and it gives me the opportunity to speak with the children about gaming as well, because I understand it, because I get it, even though I'm nearly 60 years old. I get it. So children do have that confidence to speak to me about these things. So what I spend a lot of my time doing, for example, is asking the children, well, why do you play games? And it might sound like an obvious question. If we were face to face, for example, and I was to ask you, why do your children play games? And you would probably say quite rightly, well, to have fun. Otherwise, what's the point? But it can get into a lot more depth than that. But from a simplistic level, most children play games for these reasons you see in front of them. The fun, educational, boredom are the obvious ones, but the ones that I really want you to take away from this conversation is the bottom two, which I've highlighted in red. Socializing or socialization, because as human beings, we have that innate need to socialize with others. We have to be with others. That's a part of being human. And then there's the other aspect as well, the coping mechanism. Something's gone wrong. And as adults, if something's gone wrong in our life, if our mind is heavy with something that's going on, whether that's at work or it's at home or anything else, subconsciously we tend to occupy ourselves with doing something else, just to take our mind off whatever that is. Children are exactly the same. And for a lot of children, if they are having to cope with something, a lot of them will turn to their games in order to alleviate whatever is going on up here. And these are really, really important ones to understand. They are the main ones to understand from a parental perspective. And the reason I say that is because it takes you into so many other avenues. Let me give you an example of what I mean here. I'm buying a snake. What does that mean? I remember a conversation I was having with some year six children, so 10, 11-year-olds. And we were talking about a platform called Twitch. Twitch, if you don't know what Twitch is, by the way, Twitch is a platform which is similar to YouTube in some ways, in that you can just watch videos. And a lot of those videos are being live streamed. From the perspective of a child, a lot of children are using Twitch to watch live streams of their favorite games. Some children are using Twitch to go live. In other words, they are streaming their games. Now, on this particular occasion, I asked the children who was using Twitch and what they were using it for. And out of this class of 30, there was one boy in particular who was, I think the best way of describing it is he was over animated in what he was saying. And remember what I said about that gut feeling? Something wasn't right. There was just something that was getting the hairs on the back of my neck up, and it was just making me feel uncomfortable, and I didn't know why. So I needed to look into this further. I needed to investigate, and what that meant was I had to ignore the other children and just concentrate on him for 2 or 3 minutes, just to ask him some very, very simple questions. So I asked him questions such as, so just, tell me about Twitch then. I wanted to know the makeup of Twitch. So I wanted to know if he was really live streaming on Twitch. So he explained it very well. So I said to him, so how often do you go live then? How often are you streaming on Twitch? And he said to me, he said, well, I go on there when I wake up every morning before I go to school, and I stream, I go live then. And then when I get home from school, I'll go live then up till about 10 o'clock at night. And then at the weekends, I'm usually on there live streaming from early morning until 10 or 11 o'clock on a Saturday and a Sunday night. Now, at that point, you would probably stop and think, we've got a screen time issue here. And you would be right. You would be absolutely right in here. But I'll come back to that in just a second, because what he then said just really confused me. He said, and I'm going out to buy a snake. And that just threw me completely off. I really didn't understand what he was saying. And so I asked him, I don't understand. What do you mean you're going out to buy a snake? And he said, well, you've got to be, to be unique. You to get more subscribers and more people that will donate to me and more people that will speak to me. You've got to be unique in your channel when you're going live. So I'm going out at the weekend and I'm going to buy a snake and I'm going to have it around my neck, and that would me be unique, and I'll get more subscribers and I'll get more donations and this sort of thing. And the conversation was going on like this, and at a point I just had to bring it to an end. It was one of the most bizarre conversations that I've had with a child for a very long time. Now, as I said earlier, just something like this can take you down so many avenues. And like I said, probably the obvious thing to concentrate on here, the obvious risk, would be screen time. However, I was not happy with that because I don't often find that screen time is an issue. And what I mean by that, time can be an issue. It absolutely can, for well-being, for safety, and all sorts of other things. But I know that under that time, it's like an iceberg effect. What you're seeing on the top is not the whole. So I spoke to the teacher and the safeguarding lead after that particular conversation, because I was really quite worried about this child, and said to them, what's going on at home? Are you aware of issues that are going on home? Have you had a chat with the boy's parents to see if there's anything wrong, and why he's doing all of this and why he's spending so much time on Twitch? And their answer was basically, he doesn't live with his parents. He's never lived with his parents. He lives with his grandparents. His grandparents were very, very elderly, and as far as they were concerned, as long as he was upstairs in his bedroom, he was safe. That was the point of view that they had, which I completely understood. I got it. But then I asked the important question, because as we were having the conversation, a lot of the children themselves, I was watching them, and a lot of the children were really quite astounded by what this boy was saying. So I said to the teacher and the safeguarding lead, what are his friends saying about this? What are his friends advising us? Because children are very good at talking to each other about these sorts of things. And the answer they gave really gave me the answer that I needed. And their answer was, he has no friends at all. None of the other boys like him in school, none of the other boys will socialize with him. So what that meant was this boy was going onto Twitch and he was live streaming, and what he was doing is he was trying to socialize. He was trying to find new friends. So I just mentioned screen time as part of that. And that's really the point I wanted to make with that example there, is we can concentrate on screen time. We get this bombarded at us in the media all the time, but it is really quite rare that I come across a situation where it is just the time that is the issue. And like I say, time can be an issue. Don't get me wrong. I know a lot of parents are struggling with that. But what invariably you will find is that it is something more deep than that. Something else is going on, or perhaps not going on. Their lives are not being fulfilled in some way, and they have got to go onto their screens, or they're being pulled by algorithms or persuasive design and lots of other things as well. So the point I'm trying to make, ladies and gents, is my advice to you is if you have concerns over screen time, which I know many parents do, what is more useful is to find out what are they doing and why are they doing it. The why is the crux of it. Why are they spending so much time? For the majority of children, you'll probably find it's just because they want to be with their friends, that innate requirement for human connection. The children want to be with their friends. So the point I make here is try not to concentrate on screen time too much, but more on screen use. What are they doing and why are they doing it? And that is the most important one to understand. Not screen time, screen use. That's the important one. So what about the risks? Well, let's go through a few of the four C's just to give you some examples around this. So in particular to gaming, let's start off with content. So content, what is in these games that our children are playing? Well, we get an indication from the age rating. So at the bottom, you'll see what's known as the PEGI ratings, the Pan-European Gaming Information Ratings. You don't tend to see these too often anymore. And the reason for that is because a lot of the app stores, Google Play, Apple, and a lot of the gaming stores use the US categories, which are the ESRB ratings, which you see at the top there. So everyone, teens, mature, adults, that type of thing. So these are always indicated in the gaming platform stores or the app stores, Google, Apple, etc., etc. These can be a good indication of what's in particular games, and I say indication for a reason. So the information is good. So for me as a parent, I want to know, is there violence in this? Is there sexual activity or sexual language in this? Is there bad language, violence? These are the sorts of things that I want to know as a parent, and I'm sure you do too as well. But I would advise caution. And the reason I say that is because it has been known for gaming stores, not very often, but just now and again, but more in particular, app stores that get the age ratings wrong, completely wrong on some occasions. So let me give you an example. So here is Among Us, which is a popular game with a lot of children. And in the Apple App Store, you can see that Apple rates it as 9 years old, but Google rates it as 7+. And it's not just games, by the way. So it's also in relation to apps. So, for example, Snapchat is parental guidance. Well, it isn't parental guidance. Snapchat requires, in accordance with its terms and conditions, that users are 13+. Even on top of that, WhatsApp Messenger, I think it's changed now, but when I took this screenshot, WhatsApp Messenger was rated as PEGI 3. In other words, PEGI 3 is a game for 3-year-olds. Well, WhatsApp for a start isn't a game, and it most certainly isn't for 3-year-olds. Again, it is for 13+. That's why I say is that the age ratings on stores, just be careful of them. A good place to double check is the Common Sense Media website. So that's commonsensemedia.org. It's a US website, and it's a very good place to check through other ratings, what other people are saying about the games and apps, parental views, and those sorts of things. It's a really fabulous website where you can find out more information as to whether this game or this app is appropriate for your particular child. But again, just to fly through the four C's, I'll use an example of Roblox here. The reason I use Roblox is because it's probably the one of the highest played games amongst children, and indeed young people and adults as well, but particularly in related to children. Now, Roblox has had a lot of bad press just recently, but in my opinion, Roblox are one of the more proactive companies in relation to protecting children. They're not perfect, don't get me wrong, and none of them are, but they are one of the more proactive. So, for example, just going back to just a few weeks ago now to January, Roblox have started introducing age estimation technology, where they're trying to figure out the ages of all their users in order to give them an age appropriate experience. Now that's really, really good. But even within that, there are settings within Roblox that you can use. So, for example, if a user is identified or they self-identify as being under the age of 13, certain restrictions are turned on and off, and so on and so forth for older users. So, to give you an example, the second C, contact. Well, you've within Roblox, you've got these privacy settings, these contact settings, where you can either turn them completely off, which is great, especially for those younger children, or you can turn them on with certain restrictions, such as who can message me, who can chat with me, and these types of things. So it gives you a certain amount of management functionality, within the game. There's a really good reporting system within Roblox where you can report, inappropriate chats, and you can report abuse, and all sorts of other things as well. And unlike a lot of other games, there are chat filters within Roblox as well, which is just absolutely fantastic. So we've gone from content to contact to conduct on here, and then you've got the final one, which is the commerce aspect. So Roblox, like many other games in there, they want you to spend, they want your children to spend money within the games. To us as parents, that can be quite horrifying, especially if it gets out of hand. But you can set monthly spending restrictions within Roblox, which is fantastic, because at the end of the day, this is not what you want to see coming up on your bank statement, where 2 or 3 grand's worth of whatever has been spent within Roblox. So setting up those spending restrictions is a really good idea to prevent children either mistakenly buying things, or probably as a result of peer pressure. Peer pressure can be a big issue within games, especially for older primary age children, and that peer pressure to purchase skins and loot boxes. Skins, by the way, if you don't know what they are, skins are, for the most part, the design of the character, so that the more unique the design, the more it is potentially worth. And that's all about looking unique. And there's all loot boxes in relation to being better at the game. Loot boxes have come under a lot of criticism over the last few years, and quite rightly so, in my opinion. So again, if you don't know what loot boxes are, loot boxes are slightly different things in different games, but essentially they're just, if you like, treasure chests. In some games you can just find them, in some games you can gift them, in some games you can purchase loot boxes. The trouble with loot boxes is that you don't really know what you're getting, so you spend money. It's essentially a game of chance. You play a game of chance and spend money on a loot box, and not knowing what you're getting out of that. It could be a really unique skin, or it could be something that is completely and utterly useless. And just to give you an example of that, when I'm talking about a unique skin, and I'm talking about children spending, maybe 75 pence or £1.50 or whatever it is on a skin, financially, these things can be worth a lot of money the more unique they are. To give you an example, I saw one that went to auction. Yes, an auction. A skin went to auction. So that this digital thing was sold online at auction, and it fetched $415,000 at auction. This was a skin of a weapon. In other words, it was a unique weapon. So, gaming isn't, for a lot of children, it's not really just about playing games. It's about the whole of gaming. It's that unique, it's being better than everyone else, and, all sorts of other things. So there can be an awful lot of peer pressure within games as well. So really want to be aware of, and want to understand, what are the parental features within this game, in order that I can mitigate those 4Cs risks. Okay, and again, towards the end of this talk, I'm going to show you somewhere else where you can look into this in a little bit more depth. Which brings us on to YouTube. YouTube is one that a lot of parents ask questions about, and again, quite understandably so. When you consider that on YouTube, there are well over 5 billion videos. That's increasing every single second. Well over 5 billion videos now on YouTube, and well over 500 hours of content is uploaded every 60 seconds, and over 1 billion hours of content is viewed every 24 hours. It starts to put things into perspective, that there is so much content, much of which is absolutely fantastic. I watch YouTube every single day for certain hobbies that I have, and I find it, a really amazing resource for education and all sorts of other things as well. From the perspective of a child, when I'm speaking to children and I ask them about their YouTube experiences, what are they actually watching on YouTube? What gets them excited? What fun are they having? And a lot of it comes down to these sorts of things that you can see on the screen. And these are not in any order, by the way. So lots of children are watching YouTube to find out how to do things. So whether that's for schoolwork, whether that's for their hobbies or whatever it is, so they're using it in quite an educational manner. A lot of children are watching YouTube to help with their gaming experiences. So how do I level up? How do I get through this level? What can I do in this game to make me better? These sorts of things. So essentially they're looking for tips and tricks, and lots of other things as well. Funny videos. They just want they just want a bit of comedy value, and that can be great. And lots of other children, lots and lots of other things. Anything from music to unboxing to slime to you name it, it's out there. And for the most part, the feedback to me from the children is that their experience is overwhelmingly positive, but they do have some concerns as well over some of the content that they are seeing. And I think that's probably the biggest one for parents and carers in relation to YouTube is, what are they actually watching, and is that appropriate? How do I know if that's appropriate for my child? Well, I'll give you a couple of tips in relation to YouTube. So first of all, there is what's known as a content filter on YouTube called restricted mode. For the most part, restricted mode is on by default if you are not signed in to YouTube, or if you are signed into YouTube or Google, I should say, and you actually turn restricted mode on. So if you're not signed in, it's on by default. If you sign in, you can turn it on. Restricted mode is in itself very restricted. Basically, all it means is this content suitable for under 18s or not? And that's basically what restricted mode is to a certain degree. However, there is another mode which is much, much better for parents, and this is called supervised experience. It is really easy to set up, and you can set it up via an app called Google Family Link. I'm sure many of you have had a look at Google Family Link. It's a good app on Android. It's not so good on Apple devices, but there are still some features in there that you'll find useful. So one of those features is supervised experience. So what this allows you to do is instead of just having restricted mode available, you've now got 3 types of content filters. As you can see on the screen, you've got explore, explore more, and most of YouTube. Most of YouTube is basically what the current restricted mode is all about. So essentially what that allows you to do is that allows you to set a filtering level which you deem to be suitable for your child. Is it perfect? No, not by a large stretch. It really isn't, but it is a tool which can be helpful. And that's a really important point I want to make, is that none of these tools, none of these parental features are absolutely perfect. They are not a solution. They are not going to stop your child seeing all inappropriate content, But what it will do is it will filter out a lot of that stuff, and in particular, it will filter out the adult stuff. So it's definitely one to investigate, have a look at, and see if it's something that will work for you. Now, the other one, and this is particularly for the younger children, is the app YouTube Kids. Now, when I'm speaking to the younger children, which I don't tend to do too often anymore, but when I do, and I ask those younger children, how many of you are using YouTube Kids instead of the main YouTube app? Usually in, let's say, a class of 30, I might get 3 or 4 hands that go up, and the rest of them, if they're using YouTube, they're actually on the main YouTube app. And this tends to be a real frustration for parents. It's one of these areas where the most common complaint is that I want my child, my young child, to be on YouTube Kids, but the content on there is so restricted. There just isn't stuff on there that my child enjoys watching. They like watching other stuff. And that's been a frustration for a long, long time. And I completely get it. But I'm just wondering if you are aware of a feature called Parent Allow Listing. So this is a feature within YouTube Kids, and it's really, really good. It's been around for a long time now, but there are so few parents that I speak to that have even heard of this. So I'm mentioning this just in case you haven't heard of it. The main feature, the one that I think is really, really useful for parents, is that using Parent Allow Listing, you can keep your younger children within that safer, more moderated environment of YouTube Kids. But you, as the parent, can go onto the main YouTube app using your account, and you can share videos from the main YouTube account to your child's YouTube Kids account. So basically, what that means is that instead of just allowing your child onto the main YouTube app and just being out there and being able to search and watch everything, you basically become the moderator. You pick and choose what videos are suitable for your child. So say, for example, you've got 3 children. Just by way of example, you've got 3 children, and within YouTube Kids, you've got 3 profiles set up for each of those children. You can share that video with 1, 2, or all 3 of them. So it really gives you a much, much better feature than we ever had in the past. Again, is it perfect? No, but it gives you more control. Again, it allows you to keep those younger children within that more safer, that more moderated content environment of YouTube Kids, and you do the choosing on behalf of your children. So for me, I think that is a really, really good step forward from Google to put that feature into YouTube Kids. And then we come on to the last one, social media. Now, social media, this is a huge area in its own right. And as I mentioned earlier, is that the thoughts years ago that we would be seeing a decline as more and more people were becoming aware of the risks and issues of social media in particular, as more and more young parents who had actually gone through the earlier years of social media, who had gone through some of the frustrations and complexities of social media, the thought was that we would start to see the use of social media by young children actually decreasing. But sadly, it isn't. It's the opposite. We're seeing increasing. And I gave you the example of the 3 to 5 year olds earlier. And that's really quite concerning. Social media as a whole is age restricted for a number of different reasons. The biggest reason of all is advertising. That comes back to an old law in the United States called COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act, which in a nutshell deems that only children 13 plus can make decisions as to what others are doing with their data. That's basically the crux of what this law comes down to. But there are lots and lots of other reasons as well. So First of all, why again are children using social media? Again, it's the big one that we need to be asking of ourselves. It's the why question. And the most popular answers I get back from children is, first of all, their friends. So again, exactly like gaming, they're playing games to be with their friends. They're using social media to be with their friends. And for the most part, most children are not using social media like an adult would. A lot of them are just actually using the messaging features within social media. Some of the children are saying they use social media to see their favorite influencers, their favorite pop stars, their favorite gaming influencers, and all sorts of other things as well. And then for the minority who are posting, that posting is a part of self-expression. You know, that it's a part of what they would deem to be that growing up process, and they're expressing themselves online. But when it comes to the four C's, the risks, I've put this in red with good reason, because when it comes to content, contact, conduct, and commerce, it is all of those, and it is the absolute worst of all of those. And certainly, going back to what I said earlier, you know, in my role with Lincolnshire Police, that is certainly what I see is children being subjected to things that they should not be subjected to seeing things that they really should not be seeing with those young eyes, to being contacted by people that really should not be contacted them, and I'm talking about predators and you know those sorts of things. And don't forget, social media only exists for one purpose. You know that the companies will tell you one thing, that it's all about connecting and learning about new things around the world. No, these apps are created for one reason: to make money. So there is a huge commercial aspects behind all of this as well, going into things like persuasive design and never-ending scrolling, and you know all sorts of other things as well. And children, you know, young children do not have the cognitive ability, the critical thinking skills yet to understand what it is that they're really seeing on there, which is why I'm not going into depth into any areas on social media. I just want to make very clear from my perspective, when it comes to the risks, it is all of them, and it is the worst of them. You know, children really should not be, in my opinion, children should not be on social media. So it brings us round to the question. That's gone really quick, and I'm just looking at my time on here. You know, it brings us round to the question. Well, what do we do about all of this? This is a big area, and I have not even touched the surface. I've not gone surface. I've not gone specifically into any risks and issues. What a lot of people want to know about is, well, what do I do about this then? What parental features are available to me as a parent to help me with this incredibly difficult job of parenting in the digital world? And it is such a justified question, because many of us would not have been brought up into this world. You know, it is really, really difficult. Parenting is hard enough. And when you bring the online world, the digital world into it as well, it makes that even harder. So you get no judgment from me at all. It's all about support and guidance. So one of the places, websites I would like to point you to, ladies and gents, some of you, maybe all of you, may already be aware of this, internetmatters.org. It is absolutely fantastic. So much up to date and relevant information. And when I say relevant information, it's information that parents are actually struggling with. Okay, so all of the aspects that I have not covered as part of tonight, you will find them on Internet Matters. There's so much advice and guidance on there into particular ages, particular age ranges. There's online gaming advice hubs. There's social media advice hubs. There's tips on, you know, how do I talk to my child about some of these complex issues? What sort of questions should I be asking of my child? How do I open up that conversation? You know, all of these sorts of things are on there. These Internet Matters, by the way, just before I forget, is geared specifically to parents and carers. It is there for you to help you in this complex digital world. One of the most useful things I find they've got on there is something called My Family's Digital Toolkit. Now, this is just fabulous. It is really, really simple to use, because one of the big questions from parents is, where do I even start? It is so complex. I just don't understand it. I'm not a gamer. I can't stand YouTube, and really, I'm not really a social media user. So where do I start? What restrictions can I put on the home Wi-Fi, for example? How do I know what features are available on the PlayStation 4 or the Nintendo Wii, or whatever it is? How do I know what features are available from a parental perspective to help my children if they are on TikTok or Snapchat? All of these questions, and a lot of it is, how do you know what do you don't know? In other words, what questions should I be asking? I don't even know what these questions are. That's where Internet Matters, My Family's Digital Toolkit comes in. This is why it's so helpful, is because it's so simple and it gives you the actual guidance. So as you can see on the screen there are 7 simple questions. That's all there are. And I'll show you a couple of them. And essentially what you get at the end of it is a toolkit. So you can either just go through it, or you can give them your email address, and they will email the toolkit to you. You don't have to do that, by the way, and there is absolutely no cost to any of this. Just to make that clear, there is no cost whatsoever, and I am not affiliated with Internet Matters. I just think it is one of the best resources that's out there for parents. So very, very quickly, actually the first question you get is about my children. So how many children are in your household? How many children would you like online safety advice for? It goes to 10 plus on there. I'm not really sure why it goes to 10. That would horrify me. I've got 2 boys. That's enough for me. But you can put in as many children as you want. But what that does is, say for example you've got a 6-year-old and a 13-year-old, it allows you to separate that advice, because obviously that advice and guidance is going to be different for the big separation in ages on there. And then really, really usefully, question 3 of 7 then goes into, so for example you can see for the 11-year-old, do any of the following apply to your children? Well, my child has got additional learning needs, or my child is care experienced. So again, you can tailor the advice down to strictly what it is that you specifically need. And then, well, what would you like to, advice on? So in other words, what are your children mostly doing online? So you can pick all of them if you want. There's loads and loads of them, or you can just be very specific in relation, right? I'd like to learn about this particular one, this week, and maybe I'll do that one next week. So again, you can just tailor it down to what you need. Excuse me. And the end result of all that is, this is an example of the toolkits that you actually get. So this is one I did just a couple of days ago in preparation for this particular talk. So as you can see, you can get lots and lots of advice and guidance in relation to specific advice and guidance for that particular age range, or for neurodivergent, my neurodivergent child. It might be that I need more advice about gaming, about the risks and issues and how to support my child, and also other things in relation to well, what devices is my child playing on? Well, PlayStation 4 and an iPhone 15, for example. So I need specific advice and guidance around that, onto what parental features are on that. And you get all of this. It all comes a part of it. So my advice to you would be to, go through the Family Digital Toolkits and just take your time. Don't rush through it. There's no rush with any of this. Just take your time going through it bit by bit by bit, and it will also give you, how to engage with your child, how to talk about these issues. Honestly, so much that are in there. When it comes to setting up parental controls at home, that in particular can be a difficult. And again, within the toolkit, you'll get advice on that. But my advice is to split this up into three. So start off with the big and work down to the little. What I mean by that is start off with the home. For example, your broadband. So for example, have you got a content filter on your broadband? What is it and what features are available within that? In other words, can I turn the Wi-Fi off for this particular child at 9 o'clock each evening, but it's still on for me? Well, some filters allow that, others don't. It can be very peculiar to that particular filter. So find out what is on your broadband, what is available to you, and then come to the devices. What devices do your children have access to? And then learn about what parental features are available on those devices. And then come down to the particular apps and games and see what parental features are available to you. And again, the advice around all of those is on Internet Matters. And like I say, just take your time. But I will say one thing. One really, really important thing when it comes to parental control or management features, it's something that you've got to be very, very careful of. You're probably wondering why there's a sleeping lady in a bed. Bear with me. You've got to be careful with them because a lot of companies might put these out as solutions. There's a solution for this and a solution to prevent your child seeing that. There is never a solution. That's marketing speak. If a child is really, really wants to bypass the parental features that you've put in place, those blocks and those restrictions or whatever, there are ways and means of doing that. As an example, now please bear in mind, this is an extreme example. I have never come across this before, only the once. So please do bear that in mind. I'm not trying to scare the living daylights out of people. It's not what I do. So I remember being at a school down the south of the country somewhere. I can't remember where now. But I was speaking to a year six class, and there was a girl in this class. And again, going back to what I said at the beginning, is what she was saying. What she was saying, and the way in which she was saying it again was just getting the hairs in the back of my neck up, and I couldn't put my finger on what. There was just something that wasn't right. You know, that instinct, something here is just not right. Anyway, long story short, I didn't really find out anything from her, but I did find out information from mom afterwards. So after that particular session, we went to a parent session, and this child's mom just happened to be there. And what mom said to me was that they'd been having a lot of problems with their child. I won't go into what, because it's just not very nice territory to be in. But they've been having a lot of problems with her child, to the extent where they put lots and lots of restrictions and parental features and software and all sorts of other things on the device and the home Wi-Fi, and everything else. And one of those was a piece of software where if the child tried to do something, it would have to go through to mom or dad, who would then have to approve it so that the child could do it. So, for example, going onto an app or whatever it was. So it was very, very restrictive, but with good reason. However, mum found out that the child was just bypassing these, and she couldn't figure out how until one day. One day, she actually caught a child. What a child was doing is she was setting her alarm clock on her phone that was in her bedroom for the early morning. She was getting up, and then she was on her phone, and she was clicking on everything that she wanted to do, which of course were coming up as alerts on mum and dad's phone. So what the child would do is she was then going through into mum's bedroom, picking up mum's phone, putting facial recognition on it, and then approving all of those things. Now that blew me away. That's, like I say, this child had some very serious issues going on, in which she had to eventually go for psychotherapy. Not counseling, psychotherapy. And that's why I say that is a very, very extreme and very, very rare example. But the point I'm trying to make is use parental features, They are very, very good. They are not a solution. If there is a way and means around them, some children will find that way and mean. Now, I can see we're on we're on 6 o'clock, so I just want to show you one more thing before we come to an end. A lot of questions I get from parents are that they're not happy with the games that their children are playing. And I completely get that. I really do. There is a fabulous, and I do mean a fabulous website called familygamingdatabase.com. Again, none of this costs any money at all. But you can see the red arrow that's pointing to what's called Game Finder. This is brilliant. It's just so unique. It is brilliant. So clicking on Game Finder, you can go through a series of steps. So selecting the age range for your family. So again, you might have that 6-year-old and that 13-year-old, and they're both gamers. So you can pick that age range that's on there. You can select the platforms that you've got. So whether it's a Switch, a PS, an Xbox, whatever. And then you can select how you want to play together. So if your child just plays on their own, or if you play as a family, or whatever it is. A rather fantastic feature of this is that, say your child is a fan of, I don't know, Fortnite, like I put up there on the screen, or Grand Theft Auto, or whatever it is, but you really, really don't want them playing those sorts of games. But they're the types of games that your child enjoys. So what you can put is you can put the name of that game, and what it will do is it will find similar games that are more appropriate for your child. So you can search games that are similar. And then you can put on there any themes that you want to avoid, such as those themes you can see on there. And then it will give you a list. So although it's only showing 2 on here, if you can, I don't know if you can read the top left of the screen there, it's actually found 292 games, which are probably more suitable. So that gives you an option, again, a really, really good option of just honing in and saying I'm not happy with my child playing that game, but they like those types of games, so let's try and find similar games to that are more appropriate. So that is just such a fabulous resource that is available for parents. But as well as those parental features, the really, really important one for us as parents is just those open dialogue conversations. And what I mean by that is it's not the big talk, it's little and often. What are you doing then? Where are you going? Why do you like that game? Who you're playing with? It's just part of a normal everyday conversation. That's what it has to be. And the reason for that is it's about building up that trust with your child, so that if something does happen, if somebody contacts them, if they see something which upsets them in some way, they have that confidence to come to you for help and support and guidance. One of the most common things I hear from children, when I ask them, would you talk to your parents if you saw something worrying online? A significant number of children say no, they would not. When I ask them why, it all comes down to the fear of judgment. In other words, being blamed for something that was perhaps out of their control, but even more so, the fear of their device being removed from them. And that's a big thing for children, because like I said a couple of times during this talk, for children, these devices are about that human contact. It's about them playing and being with their friends. Some people won't agree with that, some people will agree with that, but for me, that's what I'm hearing for children. So it is that fear. So do use those parental controls, find out what they are. Use that toolkit from Internet Matters. Education is what your children are getting at school, and a lot of it as well. We need to replicate that education at home. So it's about keeping yourselves up to date, and you can do that via the Internet Matters website. But it's also important about us being a good role model for our children. Children will copy our habits, they'll copy what we do. And then the final one, good screen use. Time is a factor. It absolutely is a factor. But good screen use is much, much more important than the time factor. Ladies and gents, I really hoped I would be able to give you some time for questions and such like that, but I've already gone over time and I sincerely apologize for that. Like I said at the beginning, I've really tried to fit a lot in based on a lot of the questions that were coming in. And even then, I really didn't cover anything, but hopefully what I've done is I've pointed you in the right direction. Thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you got something from this. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand back over to James. James, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alan. I think I speak for everyone when I say it's brilliant to have such kind of practical and honest advice, and it makes the whole kind of digital world feel a little bit less daunting. So thanks for that. I have been taking plenty of notes as well as a father of 3 primary school kids. I have got plenty to be getting on with to make sure the online world for them is as safe as possible. And I think, as you mentioned, those early open discussions, open dialogue is really key as well. If you found today useful, please do look out for a follow-up email that will come out this afternoon, and there'll be another one tomorrow. It'll be a short little survey, just fill that in just to help us shape if we do more of these. We'd love to carry on working with Alan on delivering these for as many people as possible. We'll share some of the key takeaways and links to other resources as well, so you can continue having these conversations at home. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy Monday to join us as well. We really hope that you found it valuable, and we wish you and your families a safe and happy week online. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.